Good evening. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. I cooked a pork roast today, but no, our video is not about cooking a pork roast. Our video tonight is about making brown gravy. So I'm showing you the very first step. I have cooked this pork roast in my roaster, and I want to get some of the broth that's cooked out of it. Now, this is not a braise, this is a roast. And so I'm taking all this lovely juice ahead of time to get ready for our video. And I'm going to put it in the fridge. This will separate. I'll take the fat off the top, and that's what I'm going to use as fat to make my brown gravy. The rest of it will be part of the broth I use. Be back in a bit. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. You saw me earlier collecting some of the fat and the broth from the pork roast I have cooking. And it smells wonderful. My kitchen smells wonderful this time of day. What I want to show you today is not how to cook a pork roast, but how to make brown gravy. We've been spending some time in our videos on different gravies and sauces, and just recently we made milk gravy. Tonight I want to make brown gravy. Milk gravy is based on a bechamel sauce, and brown gravy is based sort of on a velouté sauce. A velouté sauce is a light colored sauce, and we're going to make it dark for brown gravy. But the formulas remain the same, and I'll go over them and then you'll watch me make it. The flour and fat in equal portions, and then exactly 4 times that in liquid. And for brown gravy we use a broth for liquid. So that translates to 4 tablespoons full of flour and 4 tablespoons full of fat equals 4 ounces of flour and fat. So 4 times that is 16. That's a pint. So we're going to use 4 tablespoons full of fat, 4 tablespoons full of flour, and then we're going to use a pint of broth. The broth that I have is partly from the roast. I got the drippings from that I could, and the rest of it I made up with some broth. So let's get started. Well, brown gravy takes a little bit of patience. You're making a roux, and you want the roux to brown naturally. And how brown and tasty your gravy is depends on how much natural browning you allow to happen. Now let me tell you about the fat I just put in here. I gathered the broth and the fat out of the pork roast. I put it in the refrigerator. I let the fat come to the top, and I gathered that and measured it, and then I added enough lard, or you can use Crisco, you can use whatever you like, or butter even, but this fat will make a better brown gravy, to make up 4 tablespoons. I'm letting it melt. I want it to be good and warm. I've got my heat on 8 out of 12. I have measured my flour 4 tablespoons. So I have 4 tablespoons fat, 4 tablespoons flour, and whisk, whisk, whisk. You've seen me do this before. Well, I hope you have. I hope you've seen my other videos. If you've seen them, I hope you liked and shared them. And if you haven't, I hope you will. So if you'll see, this is already taking on a darker color. Now I like brown gravy pretty dark. And it gets part of that darkness from your toasting the roux, and part of it from the color of the broth. Now years ago, when I was always in a hurry, and hadn't done an awful lot of slow cooking, I would add something called kitchen bouquet, and that gave it a brown color. It made it look like brown gravy. But I've learned over the years that if you have a little patience and let the flour and the fat meld together, and you get the color from a natural browning of the flour, that you get a better flavor. It looks the same. Kitchen bouquet makes a pretty brown gravy, but the flavor is not quite the same. So I'm not going to make you sit and watch this whole thing, because what's going to happen now is I'm going to let it sizzle and then stir and sizzle and stir until I've got a nice dark brown color to the roux. When you get a nice dark color to the roux, you smell a wonderful nutty smell, and it imparts that flavor to your gravy. So we're going to let this sizzle for a minute or two, and I'll come back. Okay, I've been gone about 2 minutes. I've been letting this sizzle. I actually turned my heat up just a little. No scorching, but sizzling. And you can see, I hope you can see, that we have a nice brown here. It could be a little bit browner. I think we're going to let it cook just a little bit more, because I think we're starting to get a really nice brown color here. And when you sit and watch this, it can feel like watching paint dry, but it's really only been about 2 or 3 minutes. Ah, yes, you see, we're getting darker. And darker still. Now, this is not scorching. Don't mistake it for scorching. It's browning. And I can't recommend highly enough that you use a cast iron skillet for this. It holds the heat in an even way. And helps impart the pretty color. This is my favorite Piqua skillet. I use it a lot. I like it because it has nice straight sides. I don't know how old it is, but I think it's older than I am, and that's pretty darn old. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that color. I have room temperature broth here. It might actually be a little bit warmer than room temperature, but we're going to go with it. And now you stir. Whoops, I splashed a little. And stir. And stir. And stir. Because it wasn't cold, I put it all in. I also made a mess. Let me wipe that up. So the proportions that you do that by, I'll say one more time, Equal parts flour and fat, and then 4 times that by volume of liquid. And this is fairly thin right now, but we're going to watch it because it's going to thicken up as it sizzles and simmers. You see we have a good simmer going, and it won't take it long. You control your preference on the thickness by time. And I think we're just about there. You test a gravy for doneness by something called nappe. That means it coats the back of a spoon. And you can see that this does. If you run your finger down it, it doesn't run together. Oh my, that's wonderful. Turning it off. I'll tell you again, I tell everybody this in every video, you didn't see me salt this. The reason I didn't salt it is because I use self-rising flour, and it has salt in it. It has enough salt. If you use all-purpose flour, which is actually recommended, you need to salt it to taste right about now. We're going to take this up because we have beautiful brown gravy. Now, the thing about brown gravy, if you've never thought about it before, is it keeps well. It's a sauce that can be refrigerated and reheated. And we won't eat nearly this much brown gravy, but tomorrow we'll make something else out of our pork roast, and we may want the gravy on that. So when you're done, refrigerate this and enjoy it again. Wonderful, thick, creamy brown gravy. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. Hope to see you again tomorrow.